You didn't go to law school to do numbers, right? As a matter of fact, most people went to law school so they wouldn't have to do numbers except for divide any number by 3. You are trained to be the expert. And when you're not the expert, you have to be very comfortable because money gets vulnerable and all that stuff comes up.
Hi, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Crushing Chaos with Law Firm Mentor podcast. I am Allison Williams, your host, and we have a special treat today. And this is something that we're going to be doing more often on the show. We have a guest, and we decided to bring on, as our first guest in a series of guests that we're going to have on the show, Pam Meissner. Pam Meissner is with the company Cathcap, and Cathcap is owned by Brooke Lively. Brooke Lively is actually a financial advisor / accountant by trade, and I've known her for many years. I met her many, many moons ago when she was actually a CFO for her brother's law firm, and she has just taken the world by storm since then. She created her own fractional CFO company. And Pam Meissner is one of the professionals that works there. And I had the pleasure of talking to Pam about a lot of things related to exit planning, but our conversation just went in so many different directions. It was such a great conversation. I just didn't want to stick to a script of questions. So we ended up talking about a lot of different things. Some of the highlights are, we talked about leading versus lagging indicators in law firms. We talked about what lawyers can do to actually prepare for exit, how long it takes to prepare a law firm to exit it, and what you can do to increase its value while you were there. We also talked about the role of the owner in law firms. And you know that here at LFM, we talk a lot about how shifting from being a lawyer in practice to being a law firm owner to being a law firm CEO, that is its own evolutionary path. She talked about how that change happens in the context of numbers. We talked about cash flow. We talked about balancing who you are and who you have to become in order to be successful and profitable as a law firm owner. Just a lot of great nuggets. So I really hope that you all will enjoy this episode. Please let us know in the comments to this video, as well as to reply on any of the platforms where you catch the Law Firm Mentor podcast, what your thoughts are. We'd love to hear how you received our guest and get more suggestions for you for other guests you think that you'd like to see here on the podcast. And so without further ado, welcome Pam Meissner to the show. All right, Pam Meissner, welcome to the Crushing Chaos with Law Firm Mentor podcast.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
So I'm really excited to talk to you because you are talking about, and you are an expert in one of those areas that is really critical to our population. You know, we serve law firm owners, and I know that you also serve law firm owners, and you help them with exit planning. And you have a great book, Panic to Profit, How 6 Key Numbers Can Make a 6-Figure Difference. So I want to talk to you about what prompted you to write this book and how it ultimately is something that will serve people that are looking to exit their law firms.
Yeah, we actually have a subsequent book as well. The formal author of these books is Brooke Lively, the founder of our firm. And 6 Key Numbers came out of the frustrations that she saw people think that they were struggling with before they got to the point that they could afford working with a firm like ours. And so she wrote it to help those solopreneurs, or those people who are struggling to get up to $2 million with the common problems, right? Whether that is how to set billing rates or how to hold your team accountable, what cash flow is, and it's not the fact of what your balance is in the bank. And then that led into the most recent book called Exit on Top, to sell your law firm to the right person at the right time with the right price. And that's kind of where we're leaning into now, because, you know, the landscape is changing. It's dynamic. And you layer on top of that all the baby boomers who have firms that they poured 40 plus years into these firms, and they deserve to get value for what they've built. I don't know if you're familiar with Tom Lindfesti, but he runs the Law Practice Exchange. And, you know, he had a post this week that said, you know, I have these 2 law firms, and on the face of it, they look identical. But then when you value them, one is up here and the other is down there. And that's really where we're pouring into right now with owners, is for them to understand what is attractive to a buyer?
Yeah, so I love that you talked about when you say exit on top, you're talking about right person, right price, right time, right? So those factors I am sure are perplexing to someone who is just in the thick of getting their business up and running and thinking about, I need to improve the quality of the business. I want to get more profitable. I'm not even thinking about exiting, but I know that your company's philosophy is really to focus on the exit as you are building. So can you talk to us a little bit about that? Like, why is it so important to think about exit planning long before you're even at the exit stage?
Because most firms need a good 2 to 3 years to really prepare for an exit. And if you think about it, it's the one transaction that you're going to do, the one big transaction you're going to do with your firm. And you just don't want to wake up one morning and say, I'm out. And you're coming up against people who have been buying law firms again and again and again, and they're pretty sophisticated. And so we're trying to help people prepare by designing that law firm. And we like to compare it to, that HGTV program Love It or List It?
Oh, one of my fames.
Right. And so we come in as fractional CFOs, and we're going to make your firm beautiful. It's going to realize all of your dreams. And then you're going to say, am I loving it? Do I want to keep it? Or do I want to list it? And one of the biggest changes that happens as you approach exit is the role of the owner changes, and it needs to change. And so sometimes when they get to the point where they are not working in the business, and they might have other people working on the business, they might not want to give it up. It might bring them the joy, right? They might still be able to do the pieces that just, lighten up their soul. I think that's the journey that we enjoy, is getting people to the point in time where they're not sure they want to list it.
Yeah, well, it's interesting you say that because I actually, in Law Firm Mentor, we have actually had several clients that want to ascend out of the day-to-day of lawyering who get to that point and then they're like, oh, I want more, right? So I want to do more things now that I see the opportunity that comes from having a well-run business. But, when you commented that the role of the owner changes as you are preparing to exit, I'm really curious about that. Like, what would you say are like kind of the major shifts that happen for a law firm owner as they are preparing their company to exit?
The most valuable firms are the firms that have process and procedures to bring cases in, to work those cases, and to collect that money. And the less dependent they are on that owner's reputation, to, ability to get referrals or make it rain, that attorneys, je ne sais quoi, that makes them amazing at their job. If they're still working cases, if they're still doing, all the collecting, if they're still the primary rainmaker, it doesn't have any value because you take them out and you don't leave anything for somebody to buy.
Yeah.
They're not going to buy you. And so there are people who, who was it? Craig Goldfarb said, you either own a law firm or you own a business. And I think when you say you own a law firm, it's really that you own a job and not a business. And your business will never grow faster than you grow.
Yeah.
And so the owner has to grow and has to begin to, as EOS says, let go of the vine and be ready to trust others, be ready to pay for others' mistakes. Those are hard things to get accustomed to, but it's also where the value comes from.
Yeah, so you just dropped a lot of nuggets there, a lot of nuggets. And so many of the things that we talk to our clients about involve the idea of trusting others and allowing yourself to be the steward and the helicopter that is overseeing the activity rather than doing the activity. And that is one of the hardest challenges to get into the minds of the lawyer who starts out on his or her own.
Yes, because there's two schools of thought, right? They earn my trust or I give it, right? Have you ever read Covey's book, the son, not the father, The Speed of Trust.
Yes, yes.
Once you understand trust has two components, one is character and the other is competency, I think then people can get and dissect it better and lean into it, and a part of it is, not just abdicating. I've seen that again and again and again. Okay, fine, I'm letting go of the vine and the abdicating.
All right, I'm letting go. So now I'm going to stick my head in the sand, not know what's going on, and be completely shocked when something goes wrong that I had no idea was even happening, right?
Yes. So, yeah, we try to prevent that, and teach them how to have accountability. We bring a lot of accountability to the table. And if they can demonstrate that they have a well-oiled machine, that they can find issues from a leading indicator as opposed to a lagging indicator, then name your price.
Yeah. So leading versus lagging indicators, that's a really good point and not something that I think gets talked about enough. Can you describe what those are and what a law firm owner who is looking to evolve their business needs to be focused on in trying to identify what those are in their business?
Yes. So I think one of the lagging indicator is number of new clients. Okay. It's already happened. Mm-hmm. Okay. So there's nothing you can do to impact that. So let's say that you missed the mark. Well, work backwards, right? What happens before you get a client? You have a call, right? What happens before you get a call? Somebody books a call. What happens before that? You have a lead. What happens before that? You have marketing. Focus on that end of things, because if that is off, then this number of new clients is certainly going to be off. But you can impact things here before it impacts the money.
Yeah. So I think that, that top of funnel versus bottom of funnel, or leading versus lagging, I think a lot of people do like to focus on the end result. And they think if I just pay attention to how many clients I get, that I'm going to get there. But there's so many things that impact how many clients that you get, that if you don't focus on what you're doing that will lead to the number of clients, your end result becomes random, right? It becomes a product of how well you did that you're not really focusing on.
Yes. Same thing as with cash flow, right? Most law firms, struggle with cash flow. I don't care if you're PI and, you have that very cyclical thing, or you have other impacts to your cash flow. Nothing's worse on cash flow than December. I'm just going to tell you. Everybody, people are taking vacations, and we have bonuses, and we have parties, and we have all this kind of stuff. You can work backwards from cash flow too. And that's what we like to do, is we say, okay, here we are. Where do we want to be? And what's going to happen between today and there? And what do we need to keep our eye on so that we know 3-6 months ahead of time if we're going to have a cash flow issue? So we're looking at those leading indicators which are coming in today to see if we're going to have a cash flow issue. And if we are, it's much easier to act on something 3-6 months before it happens than react to it when, you're in the hot seat.
Yeah. And so much of that planning ahead, I think, is where a lot of law firm owners get stuck, and where a company like yours could be very crucial, because, lawyers, we are an interesting lot, right? We very much.
And we love you.
Yes, we are special babies, but we are special. We like to do the thing, but oftentimes those numbers are judgmental in our mind, right? We ascribe a value to them, and we say, I'm either doing well or I'm not doing well. And that then becomes a value judgment on who you are and how you are in business. And so much of not looking at the numbers causes these very critical challenges, like cash flow, challenges, particularly at the holidays, but it at all times really is taking your eye off the ball because you're triggered by what you see.
Yes. Now you brought up two things that I love to talk about. So one is, yes, you didn't go to law school to do numbers, right? As a matter of fact, most people went to law school so they wouldn't have to do numbers except for divide any number by 3.
Right.
And you are trained to be the expert. And when you're not the expert, you have to be very comfortable because money gets vulnerable and all that stuff comes up. And you know what? To be honest with you, I'm not a spring chicken.
Me neither.
There is nothing that anybody could tell us that would surprise us. I mean, we've seen it all. I don't know if you saw my resume. I've been around the world a couple of times. I mean, you're hard pressed to shock me. There's some research by a woman named Ruby Payne. She's out of Texas, and it's fascinating research. She says that our financial thermostats are set at the dinner table we grew up at. And if, much like a thermostat, that if we don't change it, if we don't cautiously go in and adjust it, we will always revert back to what we learned at that dinner table. Yeah. So tell me, what was the dinner table life that you grew up at?
Well, it's interesting you asked that because I've done a lot of work on money mindset over the years. So I would say 2 parents. Mom was very, very fearful about money. Mom was the one who balanced the budget. Mom was the one that pulled out the bills and wrote the checks at the beginning and the middle of the month. She had a process around it. It was very much we control for every possibility. There was anxiety around it. And my dad is pretty much the closest thing you will ever get to a Black hippie. He was very much free-loving. There's always enough. We will find a way. And it's
abundance. Yeah.
We both have paychecks. Like the paychecks don't grow because we want more for the world. Like we have to take care of home. And he was always giving away and he was always finding a way. He was very much a philanthropic soul and loved to do things with charities and very much a giver in that sense. And he didn't prioritize himself anywhere near as much as he should have. So in that, there was definitely polarity with them, but I learned lessons of giving away and being generous, but I also learned the lessons of process and system. And those two oftentimes conflicted until I got my story straight.
Yeah. So who else was at the table?
Older brother, 2 years older than me, and me.
Okay. And what was for dinner?
Well, that's interesting. We're getting a little deep into psychology here. So dinner could be anything from steak and potatoes to spaghetti and meatballs. Dad loved to cook, very much culinary arts kind of guy. Mom was more meat and potatoes. We eat to live.
What Ruby Payne has figured out is that there's 15 hidden rules behind the classes, right? So, you take food, right? The lower class food is about consumption. The middle class food is about flavor, and the upper class food is about presentation. You talk about money. Lower class money is to be spent. The middle class money is to be managed, and the upper class money is to be preserved, right? You talk about education. It's a luxury for the lower class, right? They got to get stuff done. The middle class, it's really a way to increase your lot in life, right? And for the upper class, education, particularly university, is just about connections. And so if you don't appreciate, if you aspire to be in a certain class, if you don't educate yourself, like you've done a lot of work on that, you're going to keep coming back. Your thermostat's going to keep setting you back. It's like lottery winners. How many people do we know? Some people would say that the PPP money was kind of lottery money. They just come back and they're even more in debt than they were before they won the lottery. So I think that it's important for people to get in touch with their relationship with money, and make conscious efforts to change it, if that's what they want.
Right.
The other thing that this is important about, really important, is understanding your team and how you've designed your team. Okay? Because there's certain roles that you need somebody with a certain mindset in. And if their thermostat is set low and it needs to be high, they will never be successful in that role.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Think of sales, right? If you're out there selling and you're selling to the upwardly mobile people, let's say you're in trust and estates, right? If you can't relate to those people, the chances of you having a very high conversion rate are very low. And it has nothing to do with you, but it has everything to do with what is the financial thermostat of the person in that role need to be. Does that make sense?
It makes perfect sense. And when we talk about psychology of sales, we do a lot with sales in our community as well as in the one-to-one coaching that our sales coach does. And a lot of times what we talk about is when you're sourcing a candidate, you want to explore things like how their attitudes about money are going to be showing up in their role, because somebody who is resistant, someone who believes we only spend what we have available and doesn't believe that we can get more. Someone who doesn't believe that that paying a high dollar for something of high value to the person is really about giving them more in use value than in cash value, and that is a service to them. People that don't understand that and can't get their mind wrapped around it are very much going to limit the sales success that you can.
Right.
And
people who look at it as a cost versus look at it as an investment.
Absolutely.
Yeah, very different.
Yeah, so this has really been enlightening. I love that what you're sharing about Ruby Payne. I wasn't aware of her research, but I am actually going to go check that out after this episode because it's really enlightening. And one of the things that I think really comes out of this when we talk about this is when we talk about just the cash issue, right? Because so much of having cash in the bank that causes issues down the road is that urgency to spend it. There are some people that as soon as they accumulate anything, it's like, where did my money go? Right? That's the time when we all of a sudden stop looking at our cash flow projection. We stop making plans for the money. Dollars need to have a place to go before they get here. And we need to continue in that vein. But like people stop there because they are oftentimes getting into that thermostat and resetting themselves back to where they started, not where they're going.
And my favorite thing is when people come into cash, I don't care if you're a PI attorney and, you've just had a big settlement or whatnot, but I find that they spend it 3 times and they don't know it, right? I'm going to invest in marketing. I'm going to hire a new employee. I'm going to buy a building. It's like, okay, we need to do one of those 3 things.
But not all.
Yeah, we got one.
Yeah. So we've been talking about a lot of different things. This conversation is not a lot of different directions, but one of the things that I want to come back to is really talking about the exit, right? So when lawyers are thinking about exiting, they are thinking about, well, I'm at the epicenter. So if someone's not going to buy me, they have to buy something. And that's where enterprise goodwill comes in, right? So when you're trying to help a law firm owner to create that, what are some of the challenges that we see with law firm owners being able to build a law firm that has that enterprise goodwill that's going to go for a higher ticket than someone who is really the source of most of the supply of cases that come into a law firm?
Systems and processes is probably the first place to start and invest in. Having one way of doing it and doing it consistently and monitoring that adds a lot of value. The other thing is, I don't know who it said, wouldn't business be great if we didn't have payroll? I'm like, yes, it would be.
It would be.
And you can see here, I have a picture of Biggie Smalls.
I can. I wasn't going to comment on it, but yes, he did catch my eye as we.
Right. But his famous line, more money, more problems. Solve the problems that you're uniquely, we all get paid for solving problems. I mean, that's the whole exchange, right? I am able to solve these kind of problems. Great. If you're not good at solving it, hire somebody to do that. Because then you'll be freed up to do more of what you're really good at. But a lot of people think that it's just about getting the money, but it's also about keeping it. And they don't appreciate that with more wealth comes more issues. So if you're not good at people, right? And most entrepreneurs, most visionaries are not.
Mm-hmm.
Hire yourself a good number 2. Call it a COO, call it an integrator, whatever you want to call it. As an app, firm admin. They have thousands of names for this role. And let that person do what they're uniquely qualified to do. And that's probably deal with people. And don't just abdicate. Okay. Make sure that you know what you need to stay out of their way. So the founder of our firm, Brooke Lively, a classic visionary, right? And she would always get in my stuff, and I'm like,
get out of my stuff.
Do you want me to spend time telling you everything I'm going to do, or do you actually want me to do what I'm supposed to be doing? And what we found out was she needed to know what the process was. I'm like, okay, so we're going to hire. Here's our hiring process. We do a 15-minute screening interview. We ask 5 questions and we rate them on their core values. Then we do a 1-hour in-depth interview with the hiring manager. After that, we do a technical exercise. After that, they get to meet a peer, ask those, day in the life kind of questions. And last but not least, they get to meet her. And she also evaluates on core values. Everybody who's touched them during that process evaluates on core values. Once she understood that was a process, she's like, oh, I'm part of it. I'm right here. But you guys are organized and analytical and intentional about it. I'm like, and we're consistent. With that information, she could back off.
Yeah. So I've had the pleasure of knowing Brooke for many years. And
Yes.
I definitely could see how that could be a challenge, especially because with her finance background, she shares some of the challenges that lawyers have, which is when you start out in your profession, you have to be the person that keeps all of the minutiae in mind in order to be good at your profession. And then when you ascend to being a leader and a CEO, you then have to be able to release that and release it in a way that still keeps you informed, right? You still have the big picture because ultimately the business is your responsibility, but you have to trust other people with the minutiae and know where you fit in so that you don't step on or overstep in the roles of other people, and you still empower other people to do their genius while you're doing your genius. And that is the quintessential definition of the challenge that law firm owners have and that most professionals have, right? When they start a business. It's the reason why law firms and medical practices are the most poorly run businesses out there. Because we just can't let go, right? Because we're so used to knowing that to be successful, I have to have it all under my own purview. So, I mean, we've been talking a lot about a lot of different topics today. This kind of went in a lot of different directions, but I could just see so many amazing nuggets coming out of this. But Pam, I want to give you kind of the last moment here to kind of tell us what there is about Cathcap and ultimately about you that our listeners should know, and ultimately where they can find you.
Absolutely. Cathcap is a wonderful place. We have many CFOs that have 20, 30, 40 years of experience. What's unique about us is we bring that experience. We know legal inside and out, but every CFO has a dedicated financial analyst, so we can be deep into your numbers, but also stay strategic and partner with you. And that's what I love about Cathcap. I also love we have very strong core values and a high retention rate. We fall in love, our clients fall in love with us. My goal is for people to get to a place where they know, and it's really a state of mind more so than a number on a bank account, that they have enough and they are enough. Because when they get to that place, they can relax. And when they relax, they just expand and they just deliver so much more value to the world. And so that's my hope and dream for everybody I come into contact with. How do you get in touch with me? Pam, P-A-M, at cathcap.com. Yes, it's a tongue twister. cathcap.com.
Well, thank you so much, Pam. We are going to have that in our show notes. And of course, how to get a hold of you, the website, your contact information. But thank you so much for being on the Crushing Chaos with Law Firm Mentor podcast. This has just been an amazing conversation, great value for our audience. And we really appreciate your taking the time to speak to me today.
Oh, it's my pleasure. And I've long wanted to meet you. I'm happy to have had the chance today.
All right. Thank you so much. All right, everyone. And that's time for another episode of the Crushing Chaos with Law Firm Mentor podcast. I'm Allison Williams, your host. You're talking today with me and Pam Meissner of Cathcap, and we will see you on our next episode.